Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Pradeep Moraes, the President, Sales and Marketing of Indo-Ocean Developers, joins us on the program today as we explore mixed developments and the real estate sector in Sri Lanka. Then, LMD columnist Hasita Premaratna discusses investor sentiment and market performance. And in our final segment, Shutterbuzz tackles the debate on nation branding, Ceylon versus Sri Lanka. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. With Colombo's skyline changing rapidly, we are discussing the real estate sector on Benchmark today. So we've invited the chairman of the Condominium Developers Association of Sri Lanka. He's also the director of Indo-Ocean Developers, who are the promoters of Altair, to give us his thoughts on key areas pertaining to this sector. Welcome, Pradeep. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If you look at the real estate sector today, just very briefly, what is your assessment of it?
I would think it's not merely robust or healthy, but I think it's poised to have exponential growth, and there are several factors that support this. Let's start with the urbanization. Sri Lanka is estimated to have an urbanization which varies from a Wikipedia reading of 15% to a UN reading of 18.2% to the government's assessment of 42%. Now, if we were to take a mean average of this, or even push it a little higher into the mid 30s, that is still way under the global urbanization percentage of around 50%, and way under the average for similar sized countries as Sri Lanka or those that are smaller, which is a whopping big 79%. That is there on one side. On the other side, there was a recent study done by one of our fellow developers, John Keels, who came up with the reading that there were just 1.7% of apartments in comparison to the total amount of domestic residential units. Even with the 10,000 apartments that are coming online, which are supposed to be done by around 2022, there would be only about 12,500, which even if there is no natural increase in the domestic units, in the conventional domestic units, would only represent about 4%, right? So this compared with other cities, other metropolises, which register 70%, 80%, gives you an indication of how much more room there is to grow.
Pradeep, your statistics does paint a positive picture for condominium development. Now, in Jagat Nandana Munasinghe, who is the chairman of the UDA, expressed concern that the sector would peak in about 2020 or 2022. Then there was Ravi Abesurya, Candor Group Director, who stated that luxury condominium sector does not face the imminent risk of an asset bubble, but one major default could trigger a crisis. Are there concerns of a real estate bubble, really?
There certainly were concerns, and I think this came about with the situation where private credit appeared to be growing at a disproportionate rate, much faster than the economy in general. And it appears that there was surmise and conjecture as to where these monies were going. So not only the gentleman that you mentioned, even the central bank had very serious concerns, and they engaged with the stakeholders in depth. They went into a in-depth investigation, and they have come out with the belief and the findings that has been baseless.
So Pradeep, what are the major trends and opportunities you are seeing in the sector currently?
Savitri, all current living and aspirational trends are supportive of condominium living. The lifestyle, the convenience, the proximity to facilities, the relative reduction in the availability of domestic help, the trend that we see where people are traveling abroad far more often, plus the fact that it is simply much more affordable to buy a condo rather than build a house or even buy an existing house of the same proportions in area because of construction costs, because of land costs, etc., etc. There is also the fact that there is this confluence of FTAs that have come in now. The Singapore FTA, which is a very, very wide and broad-based FTA, the enhancement of the Indian FTA, the one with Pakistan, the one with China, which would make Sri Lanka a very logical place for businesses to relocate. And once they come in, obviously there will be the spin-off for residential rentals and purchases, etc. We have for a long time touted this thing that Sri Lanka is a very good place for businesses to relocate, but unfortunately up to now we have not supported that with the availability of suitable and sufficient office space. Now that has also been addressed very, very intelligently, and the quality and the availability of office space that has come online serves that purpose and caters to that need. So I think that too would help in swelling the market as a whole.
So while we are looking undeniably at a growth spurt of condominiums, what are the challenges that are associated with this sector's growth?
Challenges, I think, primarily is the consistency of policy. There is an absolutely dire need for policies not to be changed, at least within the lifetime of a particular project. There is also need for policies and regulations within one department or ministry and the other to be in consort rather in conflict, and that has to be looked into fairly closely. There is an overall need for the ease of business to be improved, right? There is also the danger of laws, regulations, or the monitoring framework being changed or amended without the stakeholders being engaged. And there we have got to be careful, because it's very easy to do a superficial change or seek to amend something anticipating some result, which quite often does not come through. You might realize the very opposite of what you're striving to achieve. Then there is the labor. There is a huge shortage of labor. There is a real shortage of skilled labor, and there is also possibly a reluctance of even the unskilled labor to join the sector for various reasons.
Pradeep, what about you mentioned labor. So I'm thinking support industries to sustain this huge fueling of growth, plus also cost structures. How are those challenges being met?
I'm very glad you asked me that question, because that is a lament that our partners in the construction industry have, and justifiably so. There are layerings of costs, there are layerings of taxes, there are layerings of levies that make Colombo one of the more expensive places in which to construct. There are also situations like, say for instance, the NBT on subcontracts, where there is a cascading effect, because the supply chain is such that you sometimes on a large project have to depend on not just your contractor and a subcontractor, but several subcontractors. And there is an almost ridiculous situation where NBT is levied at each stage of a transaction, which then just adds to the whole in a very, very, really very damaging manner.
Lots of salient points brought up there, Pradeep. We will be continuing this discussion after the break. So it's time for a commercial break, and when we do return, Pradeep Moraes, who is the chairman of the Condominium Developers Association of Sri Lanka, will be discussing what factors actually drive mixed development growth that we have been seeing, and also the real estate sector as an export economy. So stay with us.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
We understand that savings provide for life's special moments. That's why we were the first bank to introduce an incentivized savings scheme, Pathum Vimana. We changed how a nation felt about savings because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
So welcome back to Benchmark. We are discussing the real estate sector with Pradeep Moraes, who is the chairman of the Condominium Developers Association of Sri Lanka and also a director of Indo-Ocean Developers, who are the promoters of Altair. Pradeep, getting back to something that we have been seeing, it's a new phenomenon for Sri Lanka, mixed development in a way. We've been seeing the Shangri-La coming up with a mixed development project, the ITC Colombo 1 project, and also Dynasty Residence in Kandy, for instance. What factors are actually driving this fueling this whole growth of mixed development projects?
As you say, Savitri, it's for Sri Lanka, it's a rather nascent industry, and it holds out a whole lot of attractions. Taking a larger picture, though, I would think that where the real development would occur in the mid-term and in the long term are the townships, the self-contained little townships that can be built and should be built around nodal hubs, strung along the highways, for instance, where they have all the conveniences that are of an immediate requirement, and still they are, thanks to the road network, the highways, connected to the main metropolis. Coming back to mixed development as we see it now, that would obviously supplement Sri Lanka's claim as a livable city, and it augurs well for the sector.
Speaking of Sri Lanka being, or Colombo being a livable city, and the rest of Sri Lanka too, there was a welcome move to remove the restriction on the ownership of foreign land. What is the impact that you're expecting with that restriction being removed?
Well, the hat I'm wearing here is that of the Condominium Developers Association, and my experience has been with condominia. So from a large condominium development point of view, it won't have much of an impact. Let me explain. The rule previously was that foreigners could own condominia property provided it was over the 4th residential floor. So if you're talking about a tall condominium building, 30, 40, 50, in our case 68 stories, losing out 4 stories is no big deal. But it would definitely help the smaller condominium developer who has a 5-story or 10-story development, where previously he had to concentrate on the local custom for 4 stories. We are unfortunately in a situation where for a long time we have been welcoming the investment but are very fussy about the investor. So it's time that we stop being xenophobic, right, and welcome people along with their investment.
So picking from that one, not too long ago, in 2016 actually, you said the scale and quality of some of the ongoing building projects in Colombo justify looking at property development as a new segment of our export economy, as they have the potential to attract investment from many countries. How do you think this sector has performed when you look at it actually in terms of becoming an export economy and attracting foreign investment?
The profile of the buyers at the moment in the mid and luxury segment is that we have about 60% resident Sri Lankans, about 30% expatriate Sri Lankans, and about 10% pure foreign buying. Right? That 10% has also lessened, I think, over the last couple of years, not couple of years, maybe 5-6 years. But with that 30% or 40%, let's put it at 30% of expatriate combined with pure foreign buying, a back of the envelope calculation would tell you that we have a current potential of bringing in about $250 million per year as FDIs. That would translate to about 15% of the current FDI record, going on last year's record of 1.6 billion. So that is significant. And this is without the ramifications, without the framework that is conducive to attract more foreign investment. So there's huge potential, and it will be a crying shame if we don't exploit this.
What more needs to be done, if that's the case, to attract foreign investment?
Harking back again to the consistency of policy, we can't afford to keep changing policy. It has to be supportive, it has to be facilitative, the ease of doing business has to improve. Certain stakeholders have got to be educated and encouraged to welcome foreign investment. We can't have a situation where even sending money in to the country is a difficult process. Now, thankfully, the central bank has relaxed that, the government has relaxed that. But that message has to go down to the players downstream. And quite often you find that, that there are bank officials who are not quite aware that these relaxations are now in place. It's very difficult to explain to an investor that it's difficult for you to get money into the country, but you can take your money out easily.
So Pradeep, just finally, as a roundup to the whole discussion we've been having, what is your perspective of the future for the real estate sector?
Extremely bullish, extremely bullish. Look around at the investments that have come in, where the investments have come from. There is CCCC and CHEC with the port city. There is Katik and Avik with Astoria. There is South City, which is the development I represent. There is ITC, there is Tata, there is Silver Needle. I mean, these are all, there is Yongtiang, which is now working on that, on the fort development, and they are said to be bringing in Ritz-Carlton and JW Marriott. I mean, these are all big serious players. They have not come in here without doing their due diligence, and they are putting their money where their mouth is. The negativity, if at all, is with us. You know, sometimes it is in our Sri Lankan DNA. But I don't think any of those obstacles in mindset or the circumstances can stop industry from progressing to its rightful place, where it will really support and buttress the economy.
Thank you very much, Pradeep. It all sounds extremely rosy. So, we've been discussing the real estate sector with the chairman of the Condominium Developers Association of Sri Lanka and a director of Indo-Ocean Developers, the promoters of Altair, Pradeep Moraes, in our segment of Benchmark today. On the other side, we have Anushan Selvaraja with more.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Nearly 60% of all businesses in our country are SMEs. Some of our most growth-oriented financial solutions have been customized to serve this sector. That's why we have invested over 500 billion rupees to support the backbone of our economy. Because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the bourse. Joining me is market analyst and LMD columnist Hasta Premaratnam. Welcome back to the show, Hasta. Now, elections just finished, right? And it threw the market, and the market reacted quite negatively. What were the reactions that came from the players in the market?
Yeah, at least soon after the election, we saw there was a lot of uncertainty around the political stability of the country, and that had an impact on the investor confidence. Obviously, the first 2-3 days after the elections, we saw the all share price index dropping almost 40 points, 40 to 50 points, and then it started to gradually recover. So I think the investors, while they realize that there is a lot of uncertainty and instability in the government, they also feel that there will be more long-term fundamentals and sustainability when you look at the big picture. So as a result, we saw the market recovering, and in fact now it has come back to the level where it was before the election day. So I think that's somewhat a positive sign from a market perspective, because the investors are getting used to this situation. The rupee depreciated almost 1 or 1.5 rupees within a short period of time. And then we saw some of the pressure coming on the interest rates as well. So I think overall, when you look at the political situation, that did have a direct impact on the market in a very short period. But I think the investors are realizing that this is more short term and things will come back to place. So they have somewhat seen a recovery as well.
So how do we bring back this confidence that we seem to have lost, Hazita?
I think the key would be for the two leaders, Prime Minister and the President, to come out strong and give the direction that the next election is in 2020, and until such time there will be almost good 18 to 20 months of government life, and that will continue, and that will continue with consistent policies, which is the important thing, because investors are not really keen on who's in power, but they are more interested about what the policies are prevailing and the consistency in the policies. So I think if that can be confirmed, now we had a budget read, we had Income Tax Act being done, we had the FEMA Act, we had several fundamental shifts in terms of the policy direction, and that direction, whether it's going to continue, and that's the way to continue, is something that the investors will be interested. So that consistency in policy and the stability will be what the investors are looking for. So sooner than later, I think it's important that the political leadership to come out strong and give that message that in the next 18 to 20 months, this is the direction that we will be driving towards.
Based on all that has happened then, Hazita, what would be your outlook for the bourse?
Yeah, so whenever you see the market coming into playing in this kind of uncertain environment, obviously that leads to a series of volatile days of trading, which is what we have seen. So you'll see ups and downs at times, and then sometimes it might be a bit of a steep drop, and then recovery also can be pretty fast. So I think that volatility will continue. And in the meantime, the more important aspect from a fundamental perspective is also the corporate earnings, because we've seen the 31st December ending quarter numbers coming out. It has been a mixed bag so far, and majority of the earnings released so far seem to be showing not a great growth story for the quarter. So hopefully that scenario will turn around and things will look more positive in the coming months. But I think rupee has to stabilize, interest rates have to stabilize, and these two were getting stabilized beforehand, and there was some kind of macro stability that was coming into the economy. So that should reaffirm if the political uncertainty is being addressed and direction is given. So I think with that, we should see things getting back into a positive trend, and right now it's hovering around 6,550 levels, which I think will further improve from here gradually, but with a lot of volatility in the market.
Thank you very much for joining us, Hazita.
Thank you.
That was market analyst and electric economist Hazita Premratne. Shutterbuzz is up next after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
Gami Pubudua, our microfinance offering, makes it possible for the youth of this country who have a viable business plan but lack the funds to realize their dreams. We are committed to grassroots level entrepreneur development because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Hello, I'm Rondi Pereira and welcome to Shutterbuzz, LMD's bi-weekly short video series which brings you views and opinions about a range of subjects. This week we focus on branding, and this is not about everyday products but rather about the branding of a nation. The debate has been around for years about how the country should be branded to promote it to the rest of the world. Some say Ceylon, some say Sri Lanka. Rohan Petyagodu, veteran of the tea industry, had this to say on the subject.
I think there always was a desire on the part of the people of Sri Lanka to have the name of the country reflect the name used by the majority of people. Now the name used from pre-colonial times, right, from the time of the Portuguese, was something like Ceylon, because this is a name that they got from presumably the Arab traders who were trading with Sri Lanka, and came to be Ceylon in the British colonial time. But in 1971, finally the government took the bull by the horns and changed the name officially to Sri Lanka. And that had consequences in many different ways. A problem with the name change was that the whole world was familiar with the name Ceylon. It was an easy name. With Sri Lanka, many people didn't know exactly how to pronounce it, especially in English. We spell it Sri Lanka and not Sri Lanka as we pronounce it in Sinhala. And so there was confusion in the world market. And at that time, the fathers of the tea industry lobbied the government to retain the name Ceylon for Ceylon tea, because Ceylon tea, thanks to Thomas Lipton in the 1930s, had become a world brand. I think the thing with the name Ceylon is that people associate different things with it. Ceylon is seen as this paradise island, almost a dreamland, somewhere exotic, beautiful, pure, and virgin. Sri Lanka is the reality. Sri Lanka is the country which has seen the tsunami, many people know the name from there, has seen the civil war, and there are some negative connotations, like every country has negative connotations. The problem is that we would like to have Ceylon as a name also for Sri Lanka. Many countries have 2 names, one for international use and one for domestic use. India has Bharat and India, Deutschland, Germany, Nippon and Japan, and so on. Many countries have different names for domestic and international use, and we would like to see Ceylon becoming a name of our country for international use, not the name, but a name. And official recognition to that would help us to protect the Ceylon tea brand. I think now that Ceylon is such an important brand name for us, we need to protect it, and the only way we can protect it is by recognizing its existence. I suspect that the only way we can really entrench this into law and defend it internationally, because as a name of a country, will be by having an amendment to our constitution. Now that is something that has got political connotations. There might be some very nationalistic people who don't want to see that happen. On the other hand, I think from the point of view of the tea industry and some of the other industries that use Ceylon as a label, they would like very much to see it being recognized by some kind of geographic reality. Because when you've got a brand as valuable and as important as the Ceylon name, it seems tragic to throw it away.
We conducted an online poll to find out what the rest of the country had to say.
I love Sri Lanka.
An overwhelming majority, 76% of respondents polled between the ages of 25 and 35 prefer Ceylon, with the remaining 24% choosing Sri Lanka. There you have it. The word Ceylon still resonates with the new generation. Await more episodes of Shutterbuzz on LMB's social media platforms and join the polls to share your thoughts. Thank you for watching Shutterbuzz on Benchmark.